everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited. I've been at Facebook for over 10 years, so I've had the opportunity to see it grow from just a college site to the global community that it is today. And I'm the VP of Social Good. What does that mean? It's my job to help build a safe community on Facebook and manage the clicker. Can you advance? Did the slides before work? Okay, just me. um, thanks. Earlier this year, Mark announced a new mission for Facebook. It is historically, we've been focused on building and connecting friends and family. From this foundation, we want to focus on building communities that are safe. I don't really need the slides, I think. Safe, supportive, inclusive, civically engaged, and informed. And most of the work that I do at Facebook really is focused on building a safe community. So when we think about safety, there are many different things that can cause harm. There is personal disasters like a mental illness, local disasters like a hurricane. There's Hurricane Irma right now heading towards Puerto Rico, and global crises like epidemics. And when we think about how we can help, there are many different stages during a crisis where we can try to help. Before a crisis, we can try to prevent it. During a crisis, we want to help the people affected. And after a crisis, we really want to help the community recover and rebuild. So I'll walk you through some of the tools that we have at each of these stages in a crisis. So before a crisis, we've built infrastructure to help understand and intervene when someone or something is at risk. And I'll talk about our suicide prevention tools and our counterterrorism tools. And some of this content may be disturbing, but I do think that it's important to show. So you can just advance the slides back there if you are able to. When someone sees distressing content on Facebook, and there's actually an example here that I can show, but I'm sure that you guys have all seen this, someone maybe sharing a lot on Facebook. Perfect. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, okay. You know what? I mean, I'm happy to talk about anything. We could also open it up to Q&A. What I was going to walk through are suicide prevention tools, counterterrorism tools. During a crisis, there's opportunities for us to, we have Amber Alerts, we have Safety Check. Has anyone here actually gotten a Safety Check notification? Raise your hand. Awesome. So when we first launched Safety Check, Facebook was actually in the position of activating Safety Check. And since then, we've actually put it in the hands of the community to activate Safety Check. In the past 2 years, we've activated Safety Check over 600 times. The way that it works is when someone is posting about something during a crisis, there are a lot of common keywords. For example, there was an earthquake in LA last night, and we saw a lot of posts in LA with the keyword earthquake, which would automatically activate Safety Check. Just because you're safe, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need help. We've recently built a feature called Community Help, which allows users to ask for and offer help. I had some really cool examples of the kinds of food, shelter, transportation asks and offers that people had recently with the hurricanes. We've also incorporated fundraising tools during a crisis, and last week we announced a new crisis response center on Facebook that is the one place to go for all the information and all the features that we have. Safety Check, Community Help, Crisis Response, Community Crisis Fundraisers, all in our Crisis Response Hub. After a crisis, I also talk about our fundraising tools. We allow nonprofits to fundraise on Facebook. We allow people to fundraise for nonprofits. We recently launched the ability for people to fundraise for personal causes on Facebook. So that's the TLDR, my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, I think it's okay. I think we can just open it for questions, yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Do you guys want to run around and ask? I can repeat it. So the question was, how do you balance? Well, I think first you said the best way to get engagement on Facebook is to make people feel angry or upset. How do we balance that with trying to do good? Okay. So a lot of the tools that we built are actually based on things that we already saw people doing on Facebook. So we already saw people telling their friends and family that we were safe. We already saw people creating groups to ask for and offer help during a crisis. We already saw people linking to fundraising events. And we actually saw a lot of engagement around these features. And so we wanted to make it even easier. And that's why we built Safety Chat, Community Help, Crisis Fundraisers. And so I would say, I would just challenge the best way to drive engagement on Facebook is to make people upset and angry, because we've seen so many amazing things get a lot of traction on Facebook that actually inspired the tools that we ultimately built on the social good team. Okay. Yep. So sorry for you guys that couldn't hear that question, but she's basically asking, and please correct me if I'm wrong, around what kind of content can we and should we allow on Facebook, and who should make those decisions? So we have community standards on Facebook that we enforce, and so there are things that are clearly against the community standards. My deck talks about terrorist content and accounts. We take a hard line on that. That's definitely not allowed on Facebook. Um, in terms of who should make the decisions about what goes in the community standards, this is something that we've evolved over time. The community standards have changed as a result of input from users, input from governments, input from third-party organizations. And so I think this is something that we're going to have to continue to work on and improve over time with help from experts in this space. Anyone else?
Thanks. We don't have to repeat it. So I love the social good that you guys are trying to drive. It's really awesome. How are you trying to drive adoption of some of these things? Because I think there's so much innovation around Facebook, and I'm not, sorry, a regular Facebook user, but just an occasional one, so I didn't even know some of this stuff existed. So how are you trying to drive adoption and really drive that change at the core?
It's such a great question. So, Hurricane Harvey actually happened around a week and a half ago, and the question's around how do we drive adoption of some of these tools. One thing that I think to start with is that we're really lucky that there's a lot of inherent desire to use these tools, and especially when a crisis happens, we've just seen the adoption go way up. So for Hurricane Harvey, we raised over $10 million for hurricane relief efforts. One way that we tried to encourage adoption was actually through a Facebook match. So every dollar you donate will be doubled. We saw community help, we saw safety check, we saw crisis fundraisers. Every time there's an Amber Alert, it automatically gets pushed to people's news feed of people in the area. And so for the different products and tools, we're lucky that people want to use them, especially when there's a crisis event or something, hard going on. We'll see them adopt them, and then there are additional things that we can do to either incentivize or work with third parties to automatically encourage people to use these tools. Oh, there's a screen.
Oh, oh, sorry. She's been raising her hand.
Off the screen. Yeah.
I can just read them out. A Question from Jenny. Does the social good team at Facebook worry about how its products are monetizing, or is it subsidized by the broader company not to have to be profitable in itself? I'm like the luckiest team at Facebook because I don't need to worry about being profitable. Thank you to the ads team that's funding the existence of my team. But yeah, the social good team is focused on driving real world actions. We measure ourselves based on dollars raised for charity, number of people marked safe, number of asks and offers received in community help. And so those are our only metrics. We have no desire to make any money off of this team, only for charities. One more question from the screen. In crisis, there is no internet access. How can FB help then? This is a really good question. So, usually during a crisis, the first thing to lose access to is phone lines. The telephone lines go down. And so, we've actually seen that Facebook can be very valuable when people can't use their cell phone to call 911. What about if the internet's down? So, that does happen as well. We have a lot of features on Facebook that allow you to post while you're offline, or we have lightweight versions of the app that even when you're in a low connectivity area, you can still use Facebook. So these are some of the things that we've worked on to try to make it better during a crisis, even if there's low connectivity or no internet. Any questions from there? Okay, one question over there.
What are the challenges you face when you are trying to develop a Facebook community in countries like India or China?
Effort. Thank you guys for helping. So the question was, what do you do when you are trying to build communities in countries like India or China? Well, first off, we don't have Facebook access in China. We do have Facebook access in India. India is actually our largest market on Facebook. And so when we think about building communities in India, I think it really comes down to observing how users are using Facebook in India and learning from that. We also have an office in India, so we have people on the ground that provide a lot of local insights. And one of the amazing things that we've seen in terms of building communities in India is really internet.org. We've seen a lot of people on board onto the internet for the first time using Facebook and free basic services. And so that has created a lot of interesting use cases that we might not see from a college student, joining Facebook in America. Yep.
You mentioned that the funding from your team comes from the ads work. I was wondering when it comes to like higher levels of leadership, when you have to do trade-offs at like really high levels, what happens to a team like Social Good where there is no profit per se? How do you make the trade-offs and prioritizations?
So I think the question is around the existence of the social good team. How do we ensure that we have sustainability when we're really not driving bottom line company metrics like revenue or user growth? I think it comes down to Mark. I think that having been at the company for a long time, for the first decade of my career, I really worked on growth. So I was driving top line company metrics, user growth. When I joined, there was 1 million users, and now we have over 2 billion monthly actives. And at some point, Mark felt that as an organization, we were mature enough and ready enough to be able to prioritize something that he felt like was for good. And he actually came and asked me to help start this team called the Social Good Team. And, I asked the same question, is this Social Good Team going to be around in a year or 2 years or 3 years? And when things get hard, are we going to still commit to this? And he said yes, because this is a long-term commitment that we're making, and so he's invested in this for the long term. Okay, I think this will be the last question. Yes? Okay, I can repeat it. Given that the work that we do is in crisis, how do we do user testing? It's a great question. We have a lot of fake crises. So I'm constantly getting notifications about the earthquake in Menlo Park, and I'm like, what? So we run simulations or like test runs of all kinds of natural disasters all the time just to see all of our tools are working. And it's a really great question because you have to be ready for anything at any moment. And to be honest, I think that we're getting better at this over time. It's not like a skill set that we inherently have. Usually we get bug reports every day if like, Facebook isn't working, but we don't know until the hurricane hits that our tools, have bugs. Anyway, thank you guys, and thank you for bearing with the technical difficulties.